Welcome to Small Business Stories. I'm your host, Ronnie Godfrey. On today's episode, we have Zahck Israel, owner of Solo Sandwich Company and Ollies Skate Shop in Longview, Texas. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you like our show, please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And now, here is Small Business Stories. All right, so Zahck Israel of Solo Sandwich Company and Ollies Skate Shop, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk with you. After the festival and everything a couple of weeks ago, my wife and I were downtown for that, and I was like, man, Zahck would be a cool guy to interview. I'd never met you.
Yeah.
I didn't really know you, but I know some of the things that you've done, and I was like, he's exactly the kind of person that I want to talk to on the podcast. So I'm glad we got connected. It kind of came together last minute, but it worked out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit, Zahck, about who you are, what you do. Just kind of fill us in a little bit.
Yeah, my name's Zahck Israel. I have the most unique spelling of Zahck out of anybody I've ever met. My name is spelled Z-A-H-C-K.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not much of a story behind that, but if you want to look me up, it's easy to find me. Anyway, yeah, Zahck Israel, kind of owner, operator of Ollies Skate Shop, partner at Solo Sandwich Company, former owner of Longview Cabinets. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you go down the road of being a business owner? Were you always an entrepreneur, or is that something that happened later on?
Yeah, so I've kind of always had, I call it like the hustler mentality. Just like, so I've always been somewhat entrepreneur like. So growing up, I grew up with my grandparents selling produce on the side of the road. So basically just like load a trailer down, go find a spot, kind of rebel style, set up and sell produce. You see people doing that all the time. And so when I got my first job, it was a barbecue restaurant. I would work went to work at 15 years old. And by the time I was 16, I'm driving and I have my own truck. And so I get a trailer, and I would load up my trailer on the weekends and take a friend of mine and set him up on the side of the road selling the produce that I had taken off my grandparents' trailer for free, and then go work my full-time job while he sold produce on the side of the road for like a small cut. And so like I've been doing this since I was 16 years old, like figuring out a way to like make a little bit of extra money. And that just kind of kept growing. Eventually, I wound up buying the barbecue restaurant at 19 years old, through an owner finance type thing. I blew it. I was 19 years old, thought I was super cool. Would usually like go to a bar or club or something and invite everybody back. And so by 23 years old, like it got taken away is like the best way to put it. It got taken away from me. Basically just shut down. And so 23 years old, like had never went to college or barely had a high school diploma, had already went through owning a business and losing it. And so for the next 7 years, I worked like normal jobs, but sometimes 2 or 3 just to like, cause always wanted to have enough. And eventually about 7 years in, I was working at Peter's Chevrolet, one of the best car dealerships here in town. Got mad at my manager and walked out. And that kind of set the path that most people know me now from. And so once I walked out of there, I went home and with the intentions of having some maker skills and a little bit of woodworking background. Pinterest was kind of like at its, like getting really popular. Everybody was looking at Pinterest projects. And so I just started doing that, like kind of just building things that I saw on the internet, putting those out for sale. And it was mostly woodworking type projects, furniture based, and it kept growing. And eventually, it turned into a cabinet shop.
Very cool. So
yeah.
So you had this barbecue business.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of happened there? I mean, I guess.
Yes.
you took people back to the restaurant after going to the bar or the club and just like, hey, here's food.
We would no. So it was more of just like having a place to go party and keep the party going. It was like having a place to go. So like, yeah, taking advantage of a good situation. But yeah, so backing up to that, the barbecue restaurant was owned by like a friend of the family, and when I went to work there, I was really passionate about it, and I talked to him a whole lot about getting to own my own one day, and it just finally came to be. But yeah, it was just some immaturity, and like I don't know how to explain it, but it's mostly like an ego thing. Yeah, and it's not. I wouldn't consider myself somebody that is like walks around with a big head.
Yeah.
But if my friends are building me up, it's hard to like look the other way or like, like,
yeah.
So it's just like, I kind of like felt like I was on top of the world and tried to live like that. And it was a great way to be humbled, like, and realize like, oh, you can't just because you are getting the chance to buy something doesn't make you like you haven't already made it.
Yeah. So it was almost like I own this barbecue restaurant. I've arrived, I've made it. There's nothing left to do now but rake in the money.
Yeah, exactly. And
which, now that you've owned some other businesses, you probably realize couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, that's like the glamour of owning a business is definitely not the important part.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be focused on that, and I definitely was.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was 19 years old when I started that or got to do that.
But you made it for 4 years.
Yeah, I made it for 4 years. Like, so we ran it fine. One of our claims to fame is even before I bought it, with one of the hardest health inspectors in Longview. Most people know her name. We had a perfect 100. We never missed. We never got a demerit. And the entire time that I owned it, we never got a demerit.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And so the current restaurant that I own is held to a very high standard, and we're going to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yep.
So what were some of the lessons that you learned in the experience of owning the barbecue joint?
Man, it's been so long ago. So it's more like subconscious, I feel like, at this point. Again, it's like to respect what I had. But some of the valuable things were just the normal things, like learning how a business worked, like learning how to pay vendors and check them in, just like really simple things. Yeah, it's like learning how to communicate with like customers and learning customer relations, or I don't know what the right word is, but like basically just dealing with like an unhappy customer and those types of things. Just learning how to, and then doing the same thing with like your team. One of the things with any of my companies, I've put a lot into morale. And so like just learning how to like keep everybody happy with each other and doing their job, performing it well. Yeah, managing people is hard. It's definitely an art, and you have to really understand a lot of psychology, I think. And I think you also have to understand how those individuals are wired, what makes them tick, what their motivations are, what drives them to do what they're doing. I guess to boil it down, what is their why, and to the extent that you can help them achieve their goals, they'll help you achieve yours. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Making sure your team is built up so they help you, because that's ultimately what they're doing, is there for you. Yeah. So when you took possession or ownership of this barbecue business, did the owner just sign everything over to you, hand you the keys, and say, here you go? Or yeah, pretty much just walked away from the business. He was still in town and was able to like watch what I was doing, but I fully was running it. Like, it was just not like a switch. I went from manager to like, this is what I do every day. So how was the role of owner different from the role of manager? To be completely honest, it's probably the same as how you should treat it. Right. Now, how I was treating it is how I thought an owner treated it, like come and go as I want, those types of things. But really, it should have never changed. I should have just managed it as exactly like I was, because you're doing the books. I'm paying payroll. I'm making a schedule. I'm ordering the food. I'm doing all of those things. I'm shopping the best prices. All of that stuff is the thing that an owner or operator should be doing. And instead, I was just like trying to have the glamorous side of it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so
I think a lot of people, especially those that are younger, that maybe don't grow up in a business family, they have this mistaken belief that when you work for yourself, you just do whatever you want. And I think any business owner would tell you that it's probably the opposite of what's the actuality is. Like when you own a business, you're still accountable to other people outside of yourself. You're accountable to your customers, your vendors, your employees, the bank, if you owe, money on equipment or the building or whatever. And I think it's easy when you first start off in business, kind of like you said, to just kind of go off the deep end and be like, oh, I can kind of do whatever I want. If I want to take off at 2:00 and go do whatever, I'll do that. And sometimes, I guess people have to learn the hard way that ain't how it goes.
That's not how it goes. Yeah. So I'm thankful that I had that lesson early enough that it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Could recover.
So you went to work at Peters for a while after the barbecue business. What did you do at Peters?
I worked in the parts department.
Okay.
So just like receiving parts and selling parts over the counter.
Right.
So again, another sales position.
Yeah. So you stayed there for 7 years and then eventually decided that it was time to move on.
Yep.
And you started the woodworking business. What did the woodworking business look like when you first started off?
So when I started the woodworking business, it was more just like small projects. I say small, it was like an end table or like a table or a chair or even like mostly things like that, kind of furniture related. And it was just like farmhouse, kind of real popular, trendy product at the time. So kind of made my own way in that, kind of did this farmhouse industrial look. So that's what it started out as, is kind of just doing more, I guess like an easy way is like, so I had an interior designer approach me, and she wanted to outfit like this whole financial firm, make everything match. And so like, that was like my first experience with like really building furniture for a whole place. And so we went in and we made like the side tables match the armoire and the conference table, like all the same thing. And so I kind of found this little niche market where I would pair up with an interior designer and basically build them anything they couldn't find to finish their project.
Interesting. So were you operating this out of your house?
Yeah. So I had a little 400 square foot metal building that I put together in my backyard. I mean, it's a shed. Like the insurance company doesn't even want to like re-sign the insurance on this building. Like it's just a shed. And so I worked out of that for about 2 years. And it built up to a point where I had somebody want to offer to basically invest in me or in what I was doing. And so at that point I realized like, okay, this thing's turning into a business, not just me being self-employed, working out in my backyard, bidding jobs for myself. And so I made a business model for this person that wanted to invest in me. And like the easiest thing I could understand was like this more or less a cabinet shop is like what it felt like. I was like, okay, I'm kind of building cabinets already. And so we'll just go more towards a cabinet shop. And so I built a whole model, and my mother-in-law my wife told my mother-in-law about this. And so my mother-in-law was like, well, if you're going to take money from him and have to pay him something, whatever, I'll just give you the money, which is like out of nowhere. Like I've never ever thought that would ever happen and never considered it being a thing. So I was like, oh, okay. So now I built a business model. Multiple people believe in me. And so like, let's make it work. And so I took the check from my mother-in-law and we bought all the tools to be a cabinet shop. And then I just started getting jobs that were cabinet shop jobs, and it just grew.
Wow.
It grew to a 13,000 square foot warehouse downtown with me and 5 other employees building cabinets.
That's a pretty awesome story. So when you guys were doing the cabinet stuff, I mean, did you go out looking for customers, or did stuff just find its way to you? Or
in the beginning, it just found its way. We live in a cool time with social media. I could just post something online, and my DMs, if you will, or my instant messenger would be full of people wanting quotes for jobs.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I actually, about 3 years ago, stopped posting because it was too much to manage we had enough work and there was no need to fish for any more.
Yeah.
And we just wrote on word of mouth.
Wow. That's the ultimate way to build a business for sure. When you, so you said you sold that business a few years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to get out of that?
Just moving into some of the new things that I'm like, that opened up more opportunities. Being self-employed and getting to meet people that I met doing the work that I was doing opened up more opportunities. Mostly it was to kind of step out of running that business to get to do some more stuff.
Yeah. Was the woodworking something you were super passionate about? Or was it just a means to an end?
In the beginning, it was something I was super passionate about. And then in the end, it was a means to an end because it essentially became where I did do that. Like I did all of the drawings for the shop, but I eliminated myself from the actual fun part of building anything.
Yeah.
So the cabinet shop ran for 9 years, 8 years. And the last 5 years of it, I didn't touch a saw.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting how a hobby like what you were doing, and you know, everybody says follow your dreams, find your passion, do what you love, whatever, and find a way to make money at it. And what I hear so often is that people do that, and it very quickly becomes not something that we're passionate about anymore. It becomes a job. It becomes work. It becomes, you know, just the way that you make money, and and that can be really hard, you know.
Yeah, and instead of getting to do something that you're passionate about, like an art form, it's now your job to make sure that, like, again, your vendors are going to be paid and your employees are going to be paid and your customers are going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
So you're just the passion part of it is quickly eliminated. At least in my case, it was. Yeah,
I kind of learned that lesson when I was teaching. I taught school for a number of years, worked as a band director, and you know, growing up, music was a huge part of my life. I mean, giant drum set right over there. It's still something that's a huge part of my life. But I learned pretty quickly that doing music in that setting for the rest of my life wasn't something that I wanted to do. And so after 7 years, I found real estate, or real estate found me. I'm not sure which one it was, but anyway, I started doing that, and I haven't looked back on it. And I've really enjoyed what I've gotten to do. And it's funny because real estate wasn't a hobby of mine. It wasn't something that I hadn't like always had this deep love for houses or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But what I did like was the idea of helping people, you know, with their home purchases, with selling their homes. I enjoyed the challenges of it, the problem solving, how do you generate business? How do you solve these challenges that come up during transactions? And that's what keeps me going, is the constant challenges that come up. And there was challenges in the education world for sure, but it was different kinds of stuff, and stuff that I just didn't, just didn't feel as passionately about, you know. It's like dealing with administrators and parents and bureaucracy, and
it wasn't
it wasn't the kind of thing I wanted to do forever. So when you look back on the cabinet shop days, would you have done anything differently when it came to how you ran the business? Would you have maybe found somebody else to do the office work and you stay in the shop and run saws and do stuff like that?
Yeah, that would be like another way would be to find somebody to run the front of it. Might have kept it even like where I didn't feel like wanting to sell it, you know, because removing myself from that part would have been probably a good thing, but it's where I stuck myself. So definitely. Yeah. As far as doing anything different, that would be like, I probably didn't need employees. I could have just like sold myself, or like, again, just hired a manager to like do the front of the house stuff and just kept myself doing what I was doing. But in the end, it all works out, right? And so like, I don't know.
Yeah.
kind of not one. I don't have many regrets, and so.
Well, you probably learned a lot too from having those employees, and from being you probably took a lot of lessons from the barbecue business that you ran and applied those to the cabinet shop, you know, the things about morale and motivation and stuff like that. And so it all just kind of builds on itself, I guess.
Yeah. The employees were definitely like my favorite part, honestly. Like the two guys that stayed on even after it was sold, they're still there. And so they're still like good friends.
Yeah.
And they want that company to succeed. So they're still there.
That's great.
Holding on, you know.
It's important to a business to have those kinds of people too, that are there for the long haul, that want the business to do well, that are invested.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You need those kinds of people. So I guess while you were running the cabinet shop, you opened Ollies skate shop?
So we opened Ollies skate shop during the cabinet shop, and we actually opened Solo too during the cabinet shop.
So when did you sell the cabinet shop?
So I sold it in January.
Oh, that was
this year. Yeah, okay. It just happened.
9 months ago.
Just about finished with my consulting that I'm doing for them.
So you kind of stayed on for a little while to...
Yeah, as like a consultant, just mostly helping with cabinet drawings. It's the most complicated part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, taking a set of plans, I guess. And did you use computer software for all that?
Yeah, I used the computer software as like a proprietary software, but we could take the architectural drawings and then convert those into shop drawings that then the shop could build the cabinets for.
Proprietary software like you had it built?
I did not, but it's just for cabinets.
Oh,
so it's not like you've probably heard of like Google SketchUp or like all these other CAD type softwares. This is like specific for cabinets.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it's the software that you guys bought that is designed to
do that.
do that task.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
So like not just everybody knows how to use it, because usually you only use it if you're in a cabinet shop setting. Right.
So I guess did the people that you sold to have any cabinet making experience, or is this
the person I sold to actually had just got laid off of his cabinet shop job, and that's kind of where the whole thing worked out for me. He needed a place to finish some projects that he had taken on as like personal projects, and our relationship started there. Because I had the shop that he could use, and I found out that he was interested in buying a shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with him being laid off from his job, just for anybody that's out there listening that may be in the same situation, did he finance this through a bank? Did you owner finance it to him, or what? He
was lucky enough to have some investments that he could cash in on.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it was all his own money.
Maybe not lucky enough. Maybe he had planned well enough.
Maybe that's right. Yeah, he had planned well enough. Yeah, that'd be the right way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, acquiring a business is definitely a good way to get into business. Mm-hmm. If you can source the capital somewhere, whether that's from selling investments or borrowing it from a bank, or maybe in like your situation, owner financing.
Yeah.
So, which kind of brings up another question that I was curious about. When your barbecue place, went under, I guess, what happened between you and the owner?
So it wasn't really much. It was kind of a really weird situation. I think I was super naive back then. Like even though I was 23, at 23, you don't know anything. So like, it wasn't until years later that like I kind of got more angry because I like realized what he had done. Like he didn't have to do it the way that he did it. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like, he came in, shut it down. And like, basically I had what money was in the bank account, but I had just like made big orders. And so I have all this food that you can't just take back to the store. And so like so we had spent money to make money, and we couldn't even get that money back, like even the money that we spent. And so we were left with taxes that were owed and vendors that needed to be paid still, with no way to like give them back money. So like that's why I worked like 2 or 3 jobs for at least the year afterwards, so I could pay back all the back taxes, all the vendors. I think we were able to like get the vendors taken care of quickly, but there was a lot of taxes that just were screwed because we had recurring revenue that was gone. Yeah. And so we relied on that.
So I guess it didn't really end well.
Yeah, no, it wasn't pretty. I just didn't know. To me, it was just like cry about it, but I just moved on. Like,
Yeah.
I've always kind of been that kind of person. Like, what's the next? Like, this sucks, but I'm still alive, and we've got to keep going. So just look the other way and go the other way as hard as you can.
Yeah. I'm kind of wired the same way. You know, I've had setbacks just like everybody does. And, you know, I don't know when I realized this, but at some point along the way, I kind of came to the realization that life's going to hand you some difficulties and setbacks, and you can either feel sorry for yourself and, you know, wallow in your sadness, or you can figure out a way to solve the problem that's in front of you, or work around the problem that's in front of you, or whatever, you know. But either way, you move past it, go on to the next thing, learn your lessons, take your lumps, and do better next time.
Yeah, keep going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and that can be a tough lesson to learn, especially if you're one of those types that's, you know, maybe high anxiety, or if you really dwell on things, which I've been known to do sometimes. You know, I can really, you know, let something get to me, but I try really hard to just limit the amount of time I give myself to worry over it, and then it's like, okay, we got to move on, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So you Ollies skate shop. How'd that come into being?
Okay, we're finally getting to more fun stuff where it's not like.
Well, we got to tell some of the background story.
Yep.
You know?
So Ollies skate shop is one of my favorite things that I would say. It came from a bunch of different places. So I got to be fair to everybody, but it came out of me having the cabinet shop was one of the big reasons that we got Ollies skate shop. So backstory, one of my really good friends, Brian Dotson, Peter's employee, still works out there. Him and I grew up riding bikes together, BMX bikes. So I own a skateboard shop, but I consider myself a BMXer. So the action sports that I did were always on a bike. Brian and I traveled all over the country. Like, we went out to Tehachapi, California together, and we just did all kinds of things together on bicycles.
And you rode to California?
No, not on a bike. We put them in a golf bag and flew our bikes out there, actually. That's how we did it. Yeah, we've done that several times. And so, anyway, long story short, Brian grows up, as we all do, and has a family, and he wants his kids to do the same thing. So he's trying to take them to skate parks, and he's having to drive them to Tyler or to Dallas and all of these other places that have city skate parks.
Right.
And he keeps going there and seeing this stuff. And so, of course, we all have always wanted that in Longview. As a kid, we would just cry about it. Oh, I wish the city, you know, that's what we would say. The city, I wish they would do this for us. And Brian had the whereabouts to just go ask city council, what do I need to do it myself? And so Brian went, and basically they told him, well, here's these tennis courts that you can pick from. If you'll fundraise the money, you can build the skate park that you want on one of those tennis courts. And so Brian got the permission for the city to let us fundraise and build a skate park. And so because of owning the cabinet shop and kind of the way the rules worked, we needed to have insurance and a place to build it. And so we prefabbed everything in the cabinet shop for the skate park, meaning that I was a paid builder of the skate park that I fundraised money for to get built. And so as we're building out the skate park, people were coming up saying, oh, I'm going to get a skateboard. They're in their 30s, and they're saying, oh, I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to go get a skateboard. And I realized, oh, there's nowhere to get a skateboard in Longview. And so as we're standing in that tennis court building the skate park, I said, I'll open a skate shop. I knew I had some money coming from the project that we were doing. And my friends, all of us are BMX riders, none of us skateboard.
Right.
I think at this point they realize I'm not talking shit. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And they just kind of all right. And it took us 3 months to finish building the skate park.
Yeah.
My business partner, Chad, and I opened Ollies months before the skate park was finished being built.
Okay.
So concept to completion, from that conversation in the parking lot, 2 months later, I had a skate shop downtown.
Wow.
And that's a lot to do with having like an amazing business partner, Chad Nevels. Him and his wife own Books and Barrels downtown.
Yes.
Laura and Chad Nevels.
Okay.
And so actually back to the cabinet shop, we built all of the bookshelves that are in Books and Barrels. And that's kind of like how Chad and I got connected. We went to the same high school, but we weren't friends during school at all.
So you and Chad partnered in Ollies?
Yeah. So make that clear.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Chad is my business partner at Ollies.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I probably stumbled around a little bit, but yeah. So when the idea came up to open up Ollies, I went and talked to Laura Nevels. And so the reason I went to her was because she was downtown already, and I was looking for a place to put the business downtown. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, is there anywhere to do this? And she didn't know, but she said, my husband Chad wants to do the same thing. And so we had a meeting at Silver Grizzly the next day. I had already found the spot and met with the landlord the same day that I was, like the day before. So I had keys to a building and showed Chad the building like that day. And we signed up, like he signed up to be my partner. The LLC was formed in like 4 days after that meeting.
I love it. Move fast and break stuff.
And so that's what we did.
So you just straight up like went, signed a lease, like
found a partner.
Here we go.
And opened a business. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you stumble onto the location?
Literally just being downtown and looking for a spot. I was that lucky.
You just saw a sign on the
building?
building?
it was a sign. I don't even think I like Googled or used like the internet to find that spot. I think it was just, I think because the Everhart Miller sign was on the door.
Yeah.
And
just old school, boots on the ground.
Yep. Got it that way.
Going out and finding it. That's cool. So you signed the lease. You guys had a brief meeting at Silver Grizzly, formed an LLC in 4 days. What happened next?
So the time zone that we're talking about is 4 years ago. So at the end of the C word, the whole COVID epidemic, everybody was getting outside. And so we kind of struck while the fire was hot or the iron was hot, meaning that like, so at our skateboard shop, we have skateboards, disc golf, and bicycle stuff. And so having the disc golf and the skateboarding stuff, people all wanted to go outside. Yeah. And so our inventory almost 10x'd in the first year off of just people coming in without any more investment.
Wow.
And so we rode that for the last 3 years, and kind of with the way the economy is going, it's definitely tapered way off.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it was just like a fever dream. I mean, it was easy. It was just like, because everybody had been locked inside and wanted to get back outside. Yeah,
I remember that, man. It was like this, mass reawakening, I guess, and like people like, oh, being outside is fun. You know, we want to do outside things. I had Derek Yeagle on the podcast, and he started up his business during COVID. Yeah. And, he talked about the same thing. It was like, we couldn't get product as fast as we could move it. We're having all these issues with supply and, too much demand. And I guess now the problem's been turned on its head a little bit with the economy kind of moving a different direction and people's purse strings tightening, or maybe it's not that. Maybe it's, the news worn off and people are, I don't know. What do you think?
It's just it's a surge that happened, and we're feeling the effects of the surge. And I don't think it's specific to skateboarding or bicycles.
It's not.
But what happened was people had the ability to go buy a lot of things, and so places that produced things thought, oh, we're going to sell a lot of things, and so they ordered a lot of things, and then there was shipping delays and stuff got stuck. And so all these things that they paid extra money for because they was built off this inflated startup basically are sitting in a warehouse now overpriced, and nobody has the money to buy them. That's kind of where we're at. And now they can't produce more stuff because they haven't sold their old inventory. And it's just loop.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses are feeling that crunch right now, and of course, you add to it the election year, and people get weird around election years, man. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this or do that until I see what the outcome of the election is, and that mentality has always kind of confounded me a little bit because in all the years that I've been alive, and I haven't seen that many presidential elections. I'm only 34. But the ones that I have seen, I don't recall there ever being a moment where it was like a switch flipped after the election and everything was completely different.
Yeah.
In my experience, life more or less goes on, and some things change, but it takes a lot of time. It doesn't just happen on November. I don't even know what day the election is, but the day after the election, it's not like something just happens and everything's different. Like those things, I don't know. It's an interesting behavior that.
Yeah. So I actually experienced it a little bit different with the cabinet shop.
Really?
Yeah. So our best 4 years were basically right after the last election.
So and
then it tapered off this year, basically, as the election started.
Yeah.
But it was like the year before the election, it slowed way down. And then as soon as, like literally after November 5th or whenever, all the builders that had talked to me the year leading up that we only quoted the jobs for, that were sitting on them, they all came at one time. It was like the day after. So I don't know. I'm kind of holding out that like maybe there is a light switch.
I think there is.
Yeah.
But I guess the thing that I think is that the actual nuts and bolts of the way things work are not going to change overnight, and that switch is going to flip. But people's, I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
And whatever people believe that's reality. And if you've got enough people that have that mindset of, oh, the election's coming up, I don't know what's going to happen, I don't want to do anything. And with cabinets, it's going to follow the housing market pretty closely. I mean, if building is down, cabinets are down.
Yep.
And the housing market has been on a downtrend as of late. And I've experienced it in my business where people are saying those things. They're like, yeah, I don't want to do anything until after the election. And, it doesn't make sense to me because I think of everything. I tend to eliminate human behavior from a lot of different things and not give that enough weight in my calculations. But human behavior and human psychology have so much impact on what actually goes on, regardless of the policies that are in place, regardless of who's in office, regardless of, whatever might be going on in the outside world and the realities of it. People's mentality around that is going to have an impact on what actually goes on. And I guess that's kind of what happened with you guys at the end of the last election cycle was, people breathed a sigh of relief that the election's over with. And, around here, Biden was not the people's choice in most cases, I don't think. But even with that, it's like, well, the election's over with. So
it
now
all went back to normal.
Yeah, now we can go on about our business.
Yep. And that's how I feel it'll be even after this one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't know much about economics. So yeah.
Well, I'm a student of it, but I don't know as much as I probably should. But I'm hoping that you're right. I'm hoping that after the election's over with, people breathe a sigh of relief and things more or less go back to normal, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I don't know if that. I feel like the older I get and as life goes on, the more I made peace with the fact that there's no such thing as normal. There's
no such thing as normal. Yeah.
No. Like, after COVID, like, oh, this is the new normal. I'm like,
okay,
new normal. Like, ever since I've been alive, change has been something that's always been happening. And honestly, I think humans crave that and they need that. I don't think anybody would be happy or having fun if everything just stayed the same all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'd be weird.
It'd be weird.
Yeah.
It'd be really weird. So Ollies Skate Shop, you guys have got that going on, and you've been running that now for about 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years in.
That's awesome. And so you said a while ago when we were talking about that you guys started kind of, I guess, with some seed capital. You bought your initial inventory, and then you kind of were able to, I guess, recycle that money just to keep the shop going. Did you ever have to? I mean, did you ever take like a paycheck from Ollies, or did you take a distribution, or did you just kind of keep recycling it over and over?
Yeah. So the only person that's ever got a paycheck at Ollies is my wife. And my wife quickly became like the sole employee of Ollies, especially in the beginning. Chad has a full-time job, and I basically had one operating another business. So my wife jumped in, and
Chad has a full-time job outside of Ollies and outside of Books and Barrels?
Oh, yeah.
What does he do?
He works in procurement for Access Oil Company.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's one of those jobs you don't want to give up.
Yep, he's downtown too. Like his office is in the Glover Crim building. So, yeah. All right. So my wife was the only one, or she's the only one that's ever been paid. And in the beginning, it had no problem giving her a paycheck and basically buying more inventory with the inventory that we originally put in. And it just grew from there. But about 3 years in, it really went down to the point where it couldn't pay an employee anymore. And so
that was around 23?
Yeah.
I guess.
So this kind of last year, it's just been enough to do what it needs to do to be there. Like Chad and I always say, like, we'll keep it there. Like, it's our passion project. We always thought we would have to put money in well before now, if you will.
Right.
But yeah, it made it on its own, and now it's kind of tapered off. So I'm kind of like in a position to where I can be the one sitting there most of the time. So I'm able to do that. But yeah, right now it's not generating enough to pay anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when those kinds of things happen, what do you as a business owner do? I mean, beyond, taking...
Cry? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, beyond crying, beyond, I guess, taking over the day-to-day operations and stuff. I mean, do you double down on advertising? Do you, offer discounts, promotions, incentives, events? Yeah.
So, I mean, we definitely rely on social media. And so we try to focus on that. And always feel like I could do better at it.
I think everybody does.
But what really is carrying us is we added a stage to the shop. So we have like a legit stage, and we're doing live music. Most of it's kind of alternative, kind of indie rock, metal, hardcore, kind of all over that kind of music. And those shows are just about paying the rent, doing one a month with the shows. Wow. And so we're going to keep building on that. And so Chad, he's like an onion. There's so many layers to Chad. Chad's is a hell of a musician, plays in a band, and so like he's got all the equipment, and so like that's how we're able to do like shows on a budget, but we do them. I don't know. People really like the sound that we have.
Yeah. Like
the equipment that we're using. We hire a professional audio engineer to come run sound at every show.
Makes a big difference.
And so yeah, we're kind of building on that, which probably leads like to us doing the music festival and things like that. And so Chad and I are passionate about music. And so we're using the skate shop as just like a place to push music through. And that's another way to generate money.
Yeah, I love that. And as a music lover, I've seen you guys post about the shows and stuff, and I've heard some of the recordings. And I have to say that, from a standpoint of someone who's kind of been there and done that in one degree or another, the sound quality actually is really good, and it does make a difference. And one thing we used to do when I was playing in a band years ago is, we had a 5-piece band. We had a manager, and for a period of time, we actually traveled with a sound man. Mm-hmm. And, we were what I call semi-professional musicians. We would work our day jobs during the week, and then we'd leave work on Friday and spend the whole weekend on the road. And but we traveled all over Texas and, found moderate success, I would call it, doing these shows. Moderate success to us was piling in a old Chevy Suburban loaded with a trailer, sharing a hotel room with 5 other sweaty dudes, dudes sleeping on the floor. And man, we just thought we were living the dream. But when we hired that audio engineer, we felt like we'd taken it to the next level, man. And he was just a friend of ours that, kind of knew how to run sound. So we were like, hey dude, come, do some shows with us. And so he would. And, but it made a difference in the sound quality, and I wish more bands would do that kind of thing, because trying to run sound from the stage is, you can forget it. Because what the audience hears out front, front of house versus what you hear in the monitor mix or even behind the front of house sound, it's completely different. And if you don't have somebody out there managing that, the sound quality, you're leaving a lot on the table with regard to sound quality.
Yeah.
So the fact that you guys had the awareness to do that is really good.
Yeah.
So when y'all do these shows, y'all bring in local bands from out of town?
It's a mix of everything. We definitely try to include local bands that want to play. But we're looking for people that are touring, kind of help them maybe connect their tours coming across the country. We've had Slow Joy, they're out of New Mexico, or Carlsbad, New Mexico.
Yeah.
And then we have like local, like Post Profit, which is another, like they're blowing up. They're a big band, local. Yeah. And we get a lot from like Shreveport, Alexandria, Dallas. Pulling them from everywhere.
So where do you find that talent? Do you go to promoters? Do you just contact them on social media? Or?
So in the beginning, it was just like word of mouth and friends. But then you kind of get connected with manager groups. And so talking to managers, they might suggest like, hey, I got this person or whatever. And then, mostly just kind of getting to meet the managers. Oh yeah. The other thing I was going to say is we've had quite a few reach out to us.
Really?
Like people, we've kind of started to establish ourselves as like a place to play. And so daily, like at least weekly, I'm having another band inbox us and say they want to come play Ollies.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you guys make that schedule? Like you said, you'll do it once a month. Is it a certain like first Saturday of the month or that kind of thing? Or?
It hasn't been a standing day, but it's definitely on a Saturday. In the beginning, we had to rent a stage and we were renting equipment. And so like we would shut the store down to like get the store ready. Yeah. And so we just would do it on a Saturday afternoon. Now we've acquired our own stage. We have all our own audio equipment, like the hangers, the speaker mounts are on the walls. So setup is way easier, which means we're probably going to start doing it like a couple times a month.
Yeah.
And ramp it up more.
And you could maybe even do like a headliner and a supporting act and that kind of thing too. Because when you've got that built-in sound, it's easier to backline. It's easier to transition from one act to the next. And
we do some backlining just because it's easier with the size.
Yeah, and you got those guys that are, touring acts. It's like, well, hey, we've got this local band that would like to open up and support, is that cool with you guys? And a lot of times they're more than willing to help out. We sure rode the coattails of some of the, bigger Texas country bands that we opened up for, because we were doing Texas country. We got to play with, some of the people like Colt Ford, we opened up a few shows for him, and got to I think Tracy Lawrence was one, and there was, like a couple of gigs. Yep. One time we played this festival called Taste Addison, and it's a big festival, and Blue October and Sister Hazel were kind of the headliners for that. And so I'm up there setting up my drum kit, and they've got a riser for each drum set because they're basically they're not backlining, but like you go up there early in the day and you set up your gear, you do a little sound check, and then they have everything saved, and they roll your riser out of the way, roll the next guys up, that kind of thing. Well, I'm up there setting up my kit, which is that very drum set that's right over there. And this guy comes up, taps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Hey, man, I really like your drums." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, dude. I appreciate that." I was like, "Hey, I'm Ronnie. I'm, playing with Westbound 21." He was like, "Oh, yeah, my name's Jeremy. I'm the drummer for Blue October." I'm like,
whoa.
What?
Yeah. It's neat. Yeah.
I was a little starstruck because I'd grown up listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in high school, they were one of those indie rock bands that were real popular at the time. And so anyway, it was a lot of fun though, getting to meet some of those people and experience those kinds of things. And it sounds like y'all are building a really neat culture at Ollies where you've got these national touring acts that are hopefully going to be coming through. And, some of the local guys that are doing the same kind of thing I was doing can get connected with those guys and maybe meet some of their heroes too.
Yeah, it's neat. It's neat getting to meet those people and realizing that they're just people.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, they are just people like everybody else who, for one reason or another happened into this situation.
Yeah, play music, Yeah,
I play music for a living. Do you play music yourself?
I do not. I'm the other half.
Okay, so you're just a fan.
Just enjoy it, yeah.
So how long have y'all been doing the live music at Ollies now?
So it started with one of the art walks kind of early on.
Okay.
I realized that we had this cool thing with art walk going on downtown, but it was a bunch of canvas art, and I'm an artist myself, but I like all versions of it. And so I think I had connected with one of the boys from Post Profit, and I just put them in the shop, randomly, free show. And we had people all the way out on the sidewalk that day. The whole shop was packed.
Wow. And
so we did it a few more times like that, people got used to us doing it on art walk. But we were paying those bands to do that, and it's free to the art walk for sure. You just let people in.
Right.
And so eventually we realized that we needed to stop doing free shows and moved them to Saturdays and kind of sort of actually booking gigs and doing more than one band at a time. So we've been doing it for 3 years now at least.
Oh, wow. It's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
And so people, I guess, pay a small admission fee to get in the door? Or?
Yeah, typically it's $10 cover.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when we had Slow Joy come, they're 180,000 on Instagram and I don't know, a bunch on Spotify. It was $40 tickets for that.
Yeah.
Still sold out the show.
That's reasonable, though. I mean, for
an intimate 200 or 180-ish people venue, you're that close to the stage. The other cool thing about using Ollies as a venue is we have Old Horse, the microbrewery that's there on the corner. They've embraced it. They got plastic cups for us. And so they serve beers in plastic cups. You can just walk right over, BYOB.
That's what I was kind of wondering about. Are y'all serving beer or wine or anything like that?
Yeah, we can't sell it, TABC rules, but we allow you to bring in a drink. And so it's if there's one thing that I want to do, it's is support my community. Yeah. And so
I could tell from the way, you've interconnected your business with community events, the art walk, the skate shop and the skate park, that to me it's really inspiring.
Thank you.
Honestly, because, one thing that I want for my business is to be involved in the community and, find ways to support it. So, hearing you speak about the ways that you found to do it is really inspiring to me.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's a huge takeaway for me.
Yeah, one of our claims to fames is Post Profit, the band, came and did an album release party at the shop, and the Old Horse that night had their best night ever.
Wow.
And so it's just we won in my mind. And we didn't even sell the tickets to that. Ollies did not sell the tickets to that show. I let the band collect all the money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat that you guys do that. You'll give so much back to the community, and complimenting those businesses around where you operate. It's really neat. So, Ollie's been going on for about 4 years, and then along the way, you've also opened up Solo Sandwich Company.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that one.
Solo Sandwich Company exists literally because of Greenside Beverage Company. Greenside Beverage Company is a natural wine and beer bar owned by a local investor that owns the entire building that Solo Sandwich Company is in. My cabinet shop, again, got to be the millwork company that built out Greenside Beverage Company. So we were there building it out. I wound up being a patron of the bar and realizing that there was an empty corner on the building, and I just wanted to join the party. And so Hudson and I talked about, Hudson is the owner of the property there.
Yeah.
So him and I talked about like what it would look like to put something up front, like a restaurant. We felt like we needed another restaurant there to keep people being able to drink and have a good time. If you could keep them fed, you can keep drinking and be safe.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was like trying to figure out what kind of restaurant you could put in essentially an office building, like something that had no infrastructure. And so the sandwich shop model fit. It was kind of like an easy model, if you would. And so, yeah, Solo Sandwich Company kind of came out of that, like me wanting to put a restaurant in there.
Yeah. So are you and Hudson partners in that, or is it someone else?
So Chad Nevels and I did that one together.
Okay, so you and Chad have
yeah,
Ollies and Solo.
Yeah, now.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so we have two together.
Gotcha.
And same thing, Chad's just like a superstar when it comes to being a business partner. I made the model up and I was like, Chad, look, you want to do this? Actually, I back up. I made the model up, got the keys to the building, went and walked Chad through it, and I was like, check out this thing that I'm doing. And he was like, how much for me to be in? And then signed in, you know.
So you've said a couple times you came up with a business model. Talk a little bit about that, because you don't have any formal business training.
None.
You only know what you've learned along the way. So when you say come up with a business model, what does that look like for you?
For me, it's more of an idea. So like it's not a bunch of numbers on paper.
Okay.
I'm very emotionally driven. And so of course, whenever you're building out something like that, you've got to look at numbers, but like it's the last thing that I'm looking at. Like I wanted to build something that was like, first off, it's for the community, somewhere that you can feel safe at. And like, so it needs to look a certain way and feel a certain way whenever you come in. And so like most of what I'm doing or what I do is off of what it feels like. And so my idea, like everything was based off of that. It's like hiring the right, we got a marketing agency, Wild Wolf. They're really popular. They've done Silver Grizzly and Wild Honey.
Okay.
So like getting all the right like people to make it look like what I want it to look like.
Yeah.
And so and then like
it's funny you say that too, because you can kind of see their fingerprints on the branding of those businesses, Solo Sandwich included.
Yeah, and me wanting downtown
has that same vibe.
Yeah, I wanted downtown to feel consistent. I wanted you to feel like you were in the same place. And so yeah, so for me, like a business model is definitely not built around the numbers of it. Probably not the best way to do it.
But it's worked for you.
Yeah, it's worked. And then at the end of the day, like obviously we're looking at numbers, but it was definitely more of a vision and getting this thing to look how I wanted it to look. Things that I had going for me coming into it is one of the cabinet shop employees had a culinary degree, and he was getting burned out at the cabinet shop. And so I knew that he needed somewhere else to go. And so we always joked about, like, I would open him a restaurant. And so, like, I already had, like, a person with a culinary degree to come in to create the sandwiches.
Yeah.
And so, like, figuring out, like, what the sandwiches were going to be and all that stuff, like, that was the last thing that we did. Like, because I just knew we would just, it would work. Like, and so, yeah, it was getting it to look a certain way. And then there's like the serious stuff, like you've got to figure out how much equipment costs and all of that.
Yeah, because even without like ovens and deep fryers and things like that, you still have to.
Yeah, there's still a lot of equipment that you have to buy.
Like
and
a cold table and.
On top of that, you're turning an empty building into a restaurant. So
yeah, refrigeration and.
Yeah, like
all that, yeah.
So we wanted to talk about business model, but. That project
we're all over the place on this podcast, dude.
Yeah,
we'll talk about one thing and circle back to another, so it's fine.
The project itself was like my first thing to ever GC. And so like that was GCing an entire project. Like I hired every subcontractor that did all the work in there. And so for me, it's like I've been learning how to do all of those things. but
that's a fun experience in and
Yeah.
of itself too.
Yeah.
Like GCing a job. I went in partners with a friend on a flip house recently, and we did the whole project ourselves, not from the standpoint of the labor, but we GC'd everything. And boy, was I ever surprised at how difficult that actually is. I've always looked at home builders and remodelers like, oh, you're just making phone calls and writing checks, and it's like
it's so much further than that.
So much further than that. I have a whole new respect for those kinds of people that do that day in and day out, and it's not an easy gig.
Yeah,
like keeping people on the job site, like having the next guy ready when this guy's finished, having the vision communicated clearly enough that they're actually building it the way you want. All of those things are things I never accounted for, and
it's having the vision. The vision's the hard part.
Yes,
you have to know what it looks like in the end. You can't just trust them to give you something.
Yeah, because they'll do
what they do,
not
what you envisioned.
Yeah, and especially with something like what you're creating, it's got to fit a brand, and the aesthetic is a big part of what people are buying when they go to Solo Sandwich Company. It's not just a tasty sandwich; it's a whole vibe. It's a whole atmosphere. It's the signage. It's the flooring. It's the counter. It's the paint on the walls, even.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I have a little bit more. Like I'll describe the model a little bit more of Solo. So we went into a really small building. We knew that we were not going to have a large occupancy. Mm-hmm. So it needed to be more or less grab and go, knowing that we would have a dining room, which is Greenside Beverage Company behind us to use. So we shuttle sandwiches back there. You can walk into Solo Sandwich Company, order a sandwich at our counter, and then just immediately leave and walk back to Greenside, and we'll bring you that sandwich as a hot pressed panini sandwich to your table. So one of my favorite things that Solo Sandwiches model, or how we sell our sandwiches, or how they're displayed, is the fact that they're actually just displayed. We don't have a menu. And the reason we don't have a menu is how do I say this? It's for people that can't read. Like, it's for my dad. Like, it's like somebody that maybe like struggles. Like, you don't need to have like all these fancy names of sandwiches. Like, I don't want to all in ones I know are local businesses, but like a fuzzy navel, or like some weird name that then you have to go read the ingredients for to even figure out what it is. Like, I didn't want that for our sandwich shop. And so I call it the donut store model. All the sandwiches are in a deli cooler. You can look at it and see what's there. And then the ingredients are listed right in front of it, but there's no fancy name. It's just very straightforward. That was the model that we were trying to achieve. Right.
So I actually haven't gotten to try Solo Sandwich yet. It's not for lack of wanting to. It's just haven't happened upon it yet. But are your sandwiches made to order? You just have some on display, or do you actually pull them from the display cabinet and that's the sandwich you get?
Yeah, so they're definitely pre-made, and they get pulled out of the deli cooler, and then they go on a panini press.
Okay.
Now we can do like a custom made to order with any of the ingredients.
Right. It's like if somebody doesn't like mayonnaise or something.
Yeah. But it is one of those where like these sandwiches are very specially curated down to the sauces that we put on them. Mm-hmm. And so like we want you to eat it like we designed it.
Yeah.
So like if you're adding to it or taking away from it, like you're not allowed to give me a review.
That's fair.
Because you didn't eat the sandwich that we made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like kind of, we try without being ugly, like to convince you to eat it how we made it, but totally. We have some vegan options where we can make you a sandwich that's full vegan, gluten-free bread. We offer that. And so we do try to take care of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mostly just pre-made sandwiches. And then we do a weekly special. And that's where it's going to be like a super curated sandwich. We're going to bake the bread for it. We're going to, like this week, it's a Cuban. And so like we make the pulled pork, We make there's like a garlic aioli that goes on there. The bread's made.
Sounds like I'm about to swing by for lunch tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised. If you're downtown, man, you should definitely check it out.
That's the thing is I don't find myself downtown all that much.
Gotcha. So, we do.
I'll have to make it a point.
One of the unique things about Solo is there's another restaurant connected to us right behind us. So it's Case's Kitchen. Case's Kitchen is formerly Johnny Case's of 75 years here in Longview. So Kathy Joyner and Chelsea run that. Anyway, so my chef that does the sandwiches is able to go back and use their kitchen.
Okay.
And so like that's how whenever we're doing that stuff, we can go back there and cook things.
Right.
And so that's created like a whole new man, I'm losing words. We work together with Case's Kitchen a lot, so we do pop-ups.
It's like a partnership.
Yeah, we do. It's created this cool partnership, and and I don't know what the right words are, but basically symbiotic. That's it. Yeah. And so we Case's Kitchen and Solo will get together and do something that you can only buy at Greenside.
Okay.
And so, like, we've done shrimp po' boy sandwiches, where it's like our sandwiches with their shrimp. And all kinds of things like that. And so, yeah, we did brats and potato soup or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. So do you guys, do y'all like slide them a little cash for the privilege of using the kitchen? Or is it just kind of one of those things like, y'all are bringing us business, we're bringing you business, use the kitchen if you want to?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's symbiotic. And one of the cool things that we do, we have an oven up front. They have some ovens in the back. We bake bread. We actually bake some bread. And so since we can, we've started baking bread for their chicken salad sandwich. Okay. So like if you were to go into Case's, you'll see chicken salad sandwich, focaccia bread made by Solo.
Cool.
And so we don't charge them for the bread.
Yeah. So you guys are making that in-house?
Yeah, we make it in-house. And
is that all your sandwiches or just
no? So any one of the ones in the cooler, it's definitely the best quality bread that we could buy. But the capacity we can't make enough to support all of the sandwiches.
That makes sense.
So like that's why we do one special that we create. We make the bread just for that sandwich that week.
So. How has the sandwich business been? I mean, have you guys found pretty good success in it?
Yeah, it's doing great. It obviously it pays its own bills. We're still with that one. We did have to get a little bit of money, and so we have to pay back some.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's working.
Tell me this: a lot of times when people go to source capital for a new business, the bank wants to see like a business plan. And you had the model, the vision, the idea, but did you have to actually put together a business plan for this, or did you have a good enough relationship with your bank that you're like, hey, I've got this idea, this is what we want to do, what do you think?
This is where I don't know if it's luck or just like meeting the right people. We didn't have to go to the bank. Oh,
okay. So you had private investors.
It's just private investors.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's always good.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Yeah. To this point, we still don't owe the bank.
That's great.
Yeah.
One thing I've always been curious about in the restaurant business, and you're the first restaurateur that I've interviewed, how do you go about sourcing your food and stuff? Like, how do you find vendors for the type of thing you're trying to create?
Yeah. So there's distributors that we all know that like locally, like Cisco or Benny Keith. Yeah. And once you get into it, you'll find out there's more than that. Like, and there's probably 5 or 6 more locally that do similar thing. But one of the unique things that we do is we shop the grocery store sales.
No kidding.
Yep. And so like somebody's putting pork butt on sale. Well, we're doing Cubans this week.
Nice.
Yep. And so Josh, that's he's kind of the operator, chef, everything. Josh runs Solo. And so Josh, him and Kathy back at Case's Kitchen, they go through the sales ads together. Yeah. And so we rely on the like our day, like our normal things that we need to have every day. Those come from like a distributor. But whenever we shop to sell ads, and if we want to do something special, we'll go grab this cut of meat that Super One has on sale this week.
Cool.
Or yeah.
So I guess the restaurant business is kind of like a lot of different businesses where you kind of make your money on the buy with your product and everything. And I guess, if you can get a discount on pork butt, well, you're still going to charge X number of dollars for the sandwich, whatever that looks like. So it's like, hey, we're actually going to make some profit this week, because from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the restaurant business is very low margin, very stiff competition, and can really be brutal.
Yeah, you have a lot of fixed cost.
And a lot of waste.
You definitely have a lot of waste, and that's something that every restaurant tries to manage the best that they can, and I think we're doing a good job with waste. But yeah, whenever you're trying to make money in a restaurant, you have to look at your fixed cost, and then like those are not adjustable, like labor.
Right.
I can't open solo with any less labor than what I have right now. Now, the cool thing is we're not capped out on the volume that same labor could produce.
Right.
And so that, to me, is a good place to be in as a business. But right now, because we haven't got the volume quite there that we need, we have to find value somewhere else, and you can do that by getting meat on sale somewhere. And so then it does fixes that.
Yeah. So when it comes to the restaurant business and, making up the gap in volume there, I guess kind of going back to the same question we had about Ollies, sales are in a little bit of a slump. What do you do in the restaurant business? Do you offer a collab with somebody else? Do you offer, some kind of a promotion, or, what are the things you guys do when you run into those situations in the restaurant?
Yeah, we definitely have thrown money at advertising. We run, about 6 months ago, we hired I call him a Google manager. He's way more than that. But he's able to track, like where our traffic's coming from. Right. And so we found out that social media is like our way to do it. And so we put a lot of money into, a specific carousel ad, which is basically our menu that you can scroll through, and you click the menu and it takes you straight to the order now, like from Facebook or from Instagram, either place that you're on. That was huge. Like we probably got 30% increase. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about social advertising like that is it's relatively cheap. I do some of that for my business, and
yeah, we're not throwing that much. We're putting like $150 a month into it right now.
Yeah,
and that's just rerunning. That's just advertising dollars that's going to Facebook or Meta.
$5 a day.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Once the ad was created,
you sell 2 sandwiches and it's completely paid for itself.
And it's really just building a funnel. Like I think that's the biggest thing, is building your funnel.
I spent several years trying to figure out how to do social media marketing on my own. The problem that I ran into was that social media marketing seems to be a moving target. And between trying to manage the day-to-day operations of my business and, deal with the things that really needed my attention immediately, and trying to learn how to do social media marketing when I had extra time, I wasn't able to figure it out. And so I was finally just like, you know what? I'm going to experiment with hiring somebody to do this for a while. And so far, that's been a really good decision because, she understands how all the stuff works. She stays on top of the trends. She, builds out these ad campaigns, and she's helping me to build that funnel that you're kind of talking about that I was never really able to figure out.
Yeah. And it's like, if she's doing the same thing that our guy was doing, like he can show you like with numbers, like this is what's happening and this is where it is, instead of just like kind of, did that post work? You just like you make this really cool reel hoping to get people to come in, but you have no way to measure it. And they know how to measure it and show you.
Well, and the thing that I ran into is like even if you know how to find the metrics and do all that sort of stuff, which is hard. Like it's hard to even go in and find the metrics that you're trying to look at. It's like I don't know whether this is good or bad.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I've got 6,000 impressions and 7,000 link clicks or whatever. Like, is that good? I don't know.
Yeah. So he is able to. So what we do is we have Square as our POS, and we can directly just see, like, did that customer come, because it's capturing like their name for credit card information.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you've got their pixel data,
Yeah.
which is what the Google tracks.
Yep.
You got the pixel data, and then you compare that against Square.
Yeah.
To whoa. Okay.
So like that's what I mean by like actually being able to see this worked. This is the line, like the full connection.
Wow, that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
And it helps too when you have a business like that where which I guess really all businesses kind of have that today. You've got that paper trail where you can connect that pixel data to the transaction data and see, oh, this person
it came from
converted.
Here. Yeah, the conversion rate and how they converted.
Yeah. So when you guys came up with the idea for the music festival, tell me a little bit about that. I was curious about that one big time.
Yeah, so the music festival, I mean, that thing has turned into a business itself.
Yeah.
And
it almost started off as like a joke, I think, like the Green Street Monster Fest. Like I remember seeing a post about that. I can't remember if it was you or someone else, but I was like, oh, haha, that's funny. And then the next thing I know, it's like, oh,
they're really doing it.
Wow, yeah, no, there's like...
Yeah, I'm a dreamer, and I don't know, I'm always coming up with ideas. If you ever came to hang out with me, that's what you would hear is just a bunch of ideas. And so walking under that bridge, my cabinet shop is right around the corner on Cotton Street. And so I would walk underneath the bridge daily. I'm an artist myself, and so I've been asked to like paint the bridge in a way that would make it more noticeable, so that way the trucks don't hit this bridge. And so I've always just like had to, like I've been asked so many times, what are you gonna like? How can you make the bridge more noticeable? How can you make it where it doesn't get hit anymore? And so me being a hippie, I was like, just shut it down and make it a green park. Like the whole space, like let's just terrace it off and like make this thing into a green park, and then we don't have to worry about trucks hitting it anymore because you just can't drive through there. And so I knew they wouldn't let us turn it into a green space, and so I was like, what if we shut it down and made it a music venue for like one day? What would it look like? And I hit up Sean, he's one of the city employees, and told him about my idea, and he said, yeah, sounds cool. And so we talked to the powers to be and had fire, police, engineers, everybody come sign off on it. And then we started building it.
Where do the engineers come in?
They want to look at like if you're going to put anything close to the bridge that may fall and foul the track.
I see.
Things like that.
So, because y'all built the stage like right in front of the bridge.
Yeah. So the stage was right at the base of the bridge, and it couldn't be any taller than what it was, or any closer than it was, and all that was like decided by railroad and engineers. Like helped us find a line where we could put it.
So when you started planning for this, were those questions that you thought to ask, or was that stuff that the people from the city were like, hey, we've got to get the blessing from Union Pacific or whatever?
Yeah, so I knew that like we probably needed some of it, but the city was instrumental, definitely in making that happen.
Yeah,
they're the ones that brought a lot of the ideas like afterwards, and just like they had all the questions, they knew what to ask.
Mm-hmm. It's really helpful when you're trying to do stuff like that to have, because one of the things I've learned and that I've ran into is that you don't know what you don't know. And you've got to have those people that you can lean on that know the questions to ask that you're not even thinking of. Mm-hmm. Like I would have never thought oh, we've got to get an engineer over here to look at this to make sure we can set the stage up. I wouldn't have thought about that, but having someone that knows to ask those questions is really valuable because, they can help you from making a costly mistake that either costs, in injuries or money or whatever.
And a lot of that stuff's going to naturally happen though when you go through the permitting process. Like to each like engineer, fire, health, all of those people are going to look at your permit when you're doing an event. And so like that kind of naturally happens that they come in. But like for me, it was like what I needed to know was like how many people that I expected to have and like those kind of things. And so like that was fun because I knew that I would need to tell them those basic things.
Right.
Like anytime that you're filling out. So this wasn't my first outdoor event to do.
Okay.
It's just my first time to do a ticketed one.
Okay.
And so when you're filling out an outdoor event permit, they want to know like how many people are going to be there. And
how do you estimate that?
And so what we did was we measured the usable square footage, and we made up our own rule of thumb. We gave everybody 10 square foot and found out there was like enough room for 5,500 people.
Okay.
And then we said, let's just take 1,500 away from that to be super safe. And we made our own capacity of 4,000 and then told them that's what we were going to do. And they basically told us what we needed to have there to have 4,000 people.
Like with regard to?
Mostly security.
Okay.
Like how many like police officers.
My first thought was porta-johns.
Well, that's the next thing. It's very important but that's going to be the porta-john company is going to be the one to use those numbers. The city will ask you, but they don't know.
Right.
They just want you to have some there. Mostly it's they want to know just to really know what you're doing.
Yeah. So when it came to kind of paying for all of this, what did that look like? I mean, did you guys have to pay the security for the event or did the city take care of that or?
Yeah, we're responsible for all of it. The city doesn't pay for any of this stuff whenever you do. So this event was fully done by citizens, or by just like normal people, not city. So you don't get anything.
So between sponsorships and ticket sales.
That's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. But I could have so I sat on the board for the Main Street board for downtown Longview. They were ready. They would have taken on the project. They would have taken my idea and helped turn it into the festival. But I wanted it to be what I wanted it to be and not be city influenced so we could get the music that we want. And so that meant, you're taking on everything. You're going to pay for it all.
Yeah.
Or you got to fundraise it yourself.
So when the day finally rolled around, how was the turnout?
I would have liked to have more. That's easy to say. But it was amazing, the amount of people that showed up.
How many
for
did you
first
have?
year. We had a little over 700 paying tickets sold, 700.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, first year event's pretty dang good in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then just with like staff and all the bands, we had about 1,000 people kind of circulating around.
Yeah. So what of the... So, you had to plan for 4,000 people. So, when 1,000 show up, how do you deal with the gap in what you plan for versus what actually happened? I mean, is it like, we've only got 1,000 people here. Hey, some of the cops can go home, or what happens there?
Yeah, we definitely cut a couple of the police officers, and that's about it. And then, staffing, you can kind of back off a little bit on your staffing. We had 80 volunteers, and so volunteers were able to be their shifts were cut. But yeah, there's not too much. Kind of at that point, you just kind of run it.
Yeah,
you just kind of leave it like
kinda
it
is
is.
what it is.
Yeah, and I think that played into the fact that we were prepared for 4,000 people and only 1,000 were there. It made it feel better for everybody. You didn't have to wait in line to use a porta potty.
Yeah,
and there's just things where. It made us look better, I think, because if we would have had 4,000 people there, we probably would have been stretched a little. Yeah, overwhelmed would have been the word.
Yeah. Yeah, on another podcast that we did, guy started a business and he's like, we didn't really have any business and we just constantly wished for more, because we wanted to be solvent, be able to pay the bills. He said, but what we didn't realize at the time was that God or universe, whatever it is that you believe in, whatever higher power, God is only going to give you what you can handle and nothing more. And we didn't realize it at the time, but he said, God gave us exactly the amount of business that we needed that would keep our lights on and keep our bills paid, but where we could still do good work, still provide good service, make the customers happy. He's like, if we would have had more business at that time, if we would have started off doing the things we're doing now, my God, we would have gone under.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah. I don't think we could have handled, we thought we were ready, but it would have been overwhelming.
And with an event like that, I've done some events on a much smaller scale. But anytime you're planning any event, there's always things that happen on the day of, that come up on the day of, that you never really planned for and that you hadn't considered. Things break, things happen. Oh, hey, we forgot to plan for XYZ. And, when the day of the event comes and you realize those things, and then you go to plan the next one, you're like, oh, okay, well, we learned all these lessons. We realized that we needed X, Y, and Z. Well, now we're going to make sure we've got that. Yeah. And so you kind of almost, the first year, I guess, is almost a little bit of a dry run just to
get it done. It's like. Yeah, it's just like, let's just get it done.
Yeah, just put the thing on and do it. But from what I could see, we didn't end up getting to go to the event, but we were downtown that day. We were a friend of ours had a birthday party at WOW, and so we were down there and went and ate some dinner, walked around the open air market a little bit, and that was fun. Now, tell me this: did y'all plan the open air market the same day, or was that just a coincidence?
No. So Ann sits on the same board as I am, so we kind of planned it to feel like it was just kind of together.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like one big event.
Yeah, it's like. She already has a captive audience, and so it was nice to like show them or like to have them there.
Yeah. We talked about coming back and actually going to the event that night, but little kids and grumpy, so it just didn't quite work out. But everybody I know that went said that it was a pretty good time. They liked the music, they liked the atmosphere, a lot of people said that it reminded them of the Alley Fest days.
Yeah, it's definitely been compared to Alley Fest.
Yeah, which I miss the Alley Fest, man. I used to go down there with my dad when I was a kid. And, they'd have REO Speedwagon and 38 Special.
Oh, yeah.
And, all these cool bands, which, I have old parents. My dad was 39 when I was born. My mom was 33, and I'm 34. So, I grew up listening to that old music, 70s and 80s and all that sort of stuff. And I still listen to a lot of it. But I just remember being a kid and, getting to hear those what I consider to be big time bands.
Yeah, right there in
Longview, man. And it's a small, relatively small setting. And then years down the road, I actually got to play at one of the last Alley Fests.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which was fun. I think I want to say it was the next year, or that might have been the last Alley Fest, but it wasn't long after that the whole thing
it went away.
So I still don't even know why that happened.
Why it went away?
Yeah,
I don't know. The board that I'm on, Main Street board, like they used to do it and they talk about it, but I've never got it clear. I think they just got tired.
Could be. I mean, they did it for what, 20 years?
Yeah,
25
at least
years?
20 years.
Yeah, it was a long time. But I'm glad to see that. You guys are kind of reviving that and bringing back a downtown festival type thing. Yeah. Is it going to happen again next year?
Yeah. We're working on a date right now. Yeah.
For sure, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, we want to do it again.
It'll be around the same time?
Yeah, it'll be around. We may push it into October.
Yeah. So what lessons did you take away from the first one that you're going to apply to the next one?
I'll give you a big one and a small one.
Sometimes the small ones are the best ones.
The small one is we had a file that never got sent off to the print guy for all of the signage. Like, this is the ticket booth. This is where you buy beer. this is where the parking is. There was not a single sign printed.
Oh, no.
That was a small one.
That sounds like a big one.
And so we had to like marker handwrite all of the signs that were there. If you saw a sign, it was handwritten with a marker.
Oh my gosh.
The big one is just paying attention to budget.
Yeah.
We were not fully funded this year and relied on ticket sales, and we had to cover a lot in the end.
So sponsorships.
Yeah. And just like what we did, we did it in 4 months. And so we started this whole thing halfway through the year. Mm-hmm. So most people's budgets were already used up. And so we just weren't able to get as much as what we needed, and we didn't care. We were going to do it, and we kind of just ran with it, and that cost a lot of money to do that. And so this year we have to be more realistic, like that we've fundraised enough and not rely on ticket sales.
So who ended up having to foot that bill? Was it you and your
Chad
partner?
and I, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Was it a big bill?
Yeah, it was about $20,000.
Oh gosh, that was painful. Well, I think every good business owner has had something in their career where, they made a gamble, took a bet, didn't quite work out, they lost some money, but
it was totally worth it.
Comes back.
Yeah, I think we'll do it again. I mean, we're going to do it again.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have confidence that it'll work even better this time.
Yeah.
It was the first year, so yeah.
Well,
but that's what it takes. You have to kind of take the risk.
Well, let me know when it's time for sponsorships. I might be willing to
nice
throw down a little bit to sponsor it.
I appreciate that.
That'd be fun. I love music. I love festivals. And I'm going to make it a point next year to get out there and jam a little bit. Do you have any, I guess without a date yet, you don't have any idea yet what the talent pool is going to look like, huh?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet.
Yeah,
okay.
Nothing to talk about yet.
So, whenever, I guess we're kind of, coming full circle on everything. So, the way we always kind of wrap up our show is, what if you're going to tell somebody who's starting a new business one piece of advice, what would it be?
Make sure that you pay yourself.
Well, elaborate on that a little bit.
So don't build yourself into. So when you're creating a machine, whenever you're creating a business, you're building a machine. Mm-hmm. Don't put yourself in as a cog that doesn't get paid. Like, how do you say this? What's the best way? Don't accept a position in your company for free just because you want to, I really don't know how to say what I'm saying.
I think so my friend Elijah told me this, Elijah Cole.
Oh yeah.
So Elijah told me this one time, cause I was talking about flipping a house and, I was like, I know you've done some of this. What's your advice on this? He said, well, you work in real estate. When you go to sell that house, you need to consider your commission as an expense. Mm-hmm. And you need to pay yourself for that.
Yeah.
For that contribution, because your time and your efforts are worth something, and you deserve to be compensated over and above what you're going to make on the deal, because you're doing
the work.
You're doing this extra work. I didn't take that lesson to heart, because this flip deal that we did, which it was kind of part of the arrangement, but my partner, handled a lot of the GC stuff because he had the subs, and he, had those relationships already. So he did a lot of the scheduling and the management of that side of things. And he also, he's more handy than I am, and I'm fairly handy, but he's even more so. But he, even contributed more hands-on labor than I did. So when it came time to do the real estate side of things, I was just like, dude, this is my contribution to the project, because you've already put all this stuff in. But the point was that, pretend you're doing this all alone, and you're the only person. Like when you're figuring up your profit margins, you have to include the cost of
You.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Elijah's point was, take your profit can't just be the commission you make on the sale. Mm-hmm. Like if the deal, he's like, you have to take yourself out of it and pretend like you're paying another realtor to sell the house, and you have to build that expense into the project. Otherwise, you're kind of selling yourself short. And I think
it doesn't scale.
Right.
That's what I was getting with it. Like it doesn't scale. Like if you just keep being like, I'll handle that part of it for free. Well, at some point you won't be able to handle it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah.
And you're going to have to hire somebody to do it. But so if you've not built in the margin to do it, well, now you're stuck.
Yeah. Build in the margin to pay yourself from the beginning.
Yeah.
That'd be my advice.
You've welded yourself inside of your machine.
Yeah.
That is good advice, man. So where, tell everybody where they can find you if they want to check out some of the stuff you're up to.
Post a whole lot on Instagram. That's the biggest place.
Yeah. Zahck.
Yeah.
Israel.
Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the country.
Yeah. Like the country. Yeah.
So you're on Instagram, and we, believe it or not, our podcast has reached several different states and even a couple different countries. So tell everybody where your businesses are located in case they ever want to stop through.
Yeah. So both of our businesses are downtown Longview. Ollies Skate Shop is at 105 Tyler Street, West Tyler Street, and Solo Sandwich Company is at 300 East Tyler Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're hungry, or if you need a new skateboard or some disc golf supplies, or if you want to just hear some live music.
Yeah, come on down.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for doing the show with us. Really appreciate it. And we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All right. Thanks, man. Bye, everybody. Hey, guys. It's Ronnie. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Small Business Stories. If you enjoyed this podcast, please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe to the show. Also, we would love to hear your feedback on what we're doing, so if you would please leave a comment, that would be awesome. Also, if you or someone you know would like to be on the show, please reach out to me on Facebook at facebook.com/GodfreyRM. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on Small Business Stories.